Well, hey garden friends, it's Destry. Welcome back to my Oregon yard. Today we're going to be talking about the cheapest and easiest way to start either a flower garden or a veggie garden. That's right, today we're going to be talking about something called winter sowing. So in this video, I'm going to give you my 5 reasons why I absolutely love winter sowing, why it's so great, and why you need to try it too. I'm also going to be sharing with you what equipment you need, the steps that you need to take, and really break this down so that by the time you're done watching this video, you can go out and try this method of sowing. Also, be sure to check the comments below. I'll have my seed sowing playlist there for you and some previous videos that I've done about winter sowing. So this will actually be my 3rd season trying this method of seed starting. And I have to say, I have learned a little bit each year and grown each year, experimenting with this kind of sowing. But there are 5 reasons why I absolutely love it. Reason number 1 is you don't need any special equipment. You don't need grow lights, heat mats, you don't need any special soil, you don't need anything that would cost you extra dollars. You don't even need a place indoors to do this. You can do it outside in your yard. The second reason I love this method, you guys, is it's super hands-off. If you want to be a low maintenance gardener and you want to try, sowing seeds or growing flowers, but doing it kind of in an easy way, then this method's for you. The third reason I love winter sowing is that you do not have to harden off your seedlings. So conversely, if you were growing seedlings indoors in a very warm, kind of protected environment, before you were to put those seedlings out in the spring, you would have to do something called hardening off, which means that you put them outside for a few hours and then a few hours more and get them used to being in an outdoor environment. Well, when you do winter seed sowing, you don't have to do that process. These seedlings have already been outdoors in a little bit of a microclimate, but they've been outdoors, and so you don't have to harden them off. So they can go directly from the container that you sow them in straight into the garden or into the ground. The fourth reason I love doing winter sowing is I usually have a pretty high success rate. So the things that I choose, now there are specific seeds you want to consider, and I'm going to take you through some of those in a minute. But you want to pick the correct seeds, and if you do, at least for me, I have a pretty high success rate, meaning that the seeds will germinate and then those seedlings will grow into plants in my garden that season. And again, the 5th reason I love this is you can do it outside. You don't have to have a greenhouse. You don't have to have any sort of setup in your home. You can simply do this outside. And one other bonus reason, it's really fun to do with kids. So if you do have kids, or maybe you teach at a daycare or preschool, this is a really fun process. You can start it now here in like January, February, and then in the spring, you can show them how nature can produce these beautiful seedlings for you. So those are some of the reasons I like it. Let me take you through some of these equipment that you actually will need for this process. So the first thing that you're going to need are some containers. Now, I prefer clear milk jugs. They work the best for me. My family drinks a lot of milk, and that is what I like to use. Now, another thing you could use are any sort of like takeout containers that have a clear lid. So for instance, these containers here would be perfect for this process. They do have that clear lid, and so I could reuse, upcycle these and use them for my winter sowing. Now, there are a couple things I'm going to do to prepare these containers, so be sure to stick around for that part of the video. The next thing you're going to need is just a regular serrated knife, a pocket knife, and then maybe a pair of garden shears or kitchen scissors, something a little more heavy duty than maybe a regular pair of scissors. I like this particular pair, but whatever will work for you, something to cut with. The next thing you're going to need is some duct tape. I really like to have duct tape. You could also use box tape. Masking tape doesn't really work. I would stick with either maybe box tape, but masking tape, or I'm sorry, this kind of tape, duct tape is the best. The next thing you're going to need is something to mark your plants with. Now, I actually purchased some little plant markers, but one tip I have for you is if you purchase any garden nursery plants from like the year before, just keep the little tags. You can always use the backside of them and reuse those. Another thing you want to have is a marker of some kind. I really like these garden markers. The reason I like them is that the ink doesn't wear off as quickly as a Sharpie. although a Sharpie will work, but you need something to mark your plants with and your containers with. And then of course the last thing you're going to need are your seeds. So you can get seeds very inexpensive. You could get them at the dollar store or your local hardware store. Let me take you through some of the varieties that'll work really well for this winter sowing process. So I have a little list here of some of the seeds that work really well for this process. So if you are a veggie gardener, some things that you can sow with this process are cool season veggies, things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, leafy greens, lettuce, beets, carrots, radishes. If you like to grow herbs, some herbs you might consider are things like sage, oregano, dill, or mint. And then if you're a flower gardener like me, things that work well, there's all kinds, but just a few are foxglove, cosmos, alyssum, snapdragons, sweet peas, columbines, delphiniums, bells of Ireland, poppies, and black-eyed Susans. So you can see there's just a variety of things that you could try with this method. And if you're not sure if your seed packet is good for this method, of course you can Google it and look it up, but you want to look for things on the back of the packet, things that say like cold hardy, perennials are really good for this method of sowing as well. You could look for things that say direct sow into the ground after, danger of last frost or whatever. But you want to maybe check it out. So, there are some seeds that this would not be good for. Things that need heat to germinate, this would not be the correct method. So if you're unsure, just Google it. So let me go ahead and show you how I'm going to prepare my containers to do this process. So the first thing I'm going to do are poke some drainage holes in the bottom of whatever container I'm using. So you could do that simply with a kitchen knife. I just kind of put a few holes in the bottom, 4 or 5, but you do want to make sure that you have drainage in whatever container that you're using. Now again, another reason I like this method is I don't have to have any kind of special like seed starting mix soil. All I'm going to do is use a bag mix from, the hardware store or from a garden center. I'm not going to dig soil out of the ground for this. I am going to use a bagged potting mix. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around my milk jug, but I am going to leave this spot right here as a hinge. So what that'll look like is I'm just going to get my clipper here just to kind of get that started. And then I'm just going to cut around, and I'm going to want to have it be pretty deep. You want to have at least 4 to 5 inches of soil for these to develop. So I went ahead and cut that around, and then like you can see, I'm going to leave this spot, and that's going to act as kind of a hinge for this so that I can open this up when these have been done germinating, and I can take these out and put them in my garden. So as long as you have the drainage holes and you have, a lid, I am going to be taping these up when I'm done sowing the seeds. And what that's going to do is create kind of this little greenhouse, this little microclimate in here. Now there is going to be water is going to be able to get in from the rain. And as the spring goes forward, if it starts to get more dry, I am going to have to make sure that these are staying damp. But right now in the Pacific Northwest, it's very rainy, so the rain will have an opportunity to get in there. But I am going to be taping these shut, and then of course it will have drainage at the bottom. Be careful. All right, let me see if I can do this a little better here with this one. But I just want to put some drainage holes in the bottom. If you're going to use any kind of takeout container, there's a lot of different containers you could use for this. Okay, this one's going much better. Oh, I might crack that one a little bit, but there you go. So here's some of the seeds I'm going to be sowing today. Again, I gave you that list, but just to show you a few, I am going to be sowing some poppies with this winter sowing method. I have 3 different kinds here. These are from Baker Creek Seeds. So if you want a full complete list of the seed hauls that I did this year from Baker Creek, anyway, I have other videos about that. Again, and check out that seed starting playlist. I'm also going to be trying some of these Canterbury Bells. I think these would be a good candidate for this. I'm going to be doing some forget-me-nots. These are a Bellamy White. I'm going to be doing some columbine seeds, and these are seeds I actually collected from my columbine plants last year, so I'm excited to try those. I have one free seed packet of lettuce. I'm not a huge grower of lettuce, but hey, I thought I'd give it a try. And then I also have one other one. So two other varieties I'm going to be starting with this method. One of them is Bells of Ireland, so I'm going to be trying that. And then I have some Cosmo seeds that I also collected last year, so I'm going to be trying some of those. So one tip I have for you is to start collecting your milk jugs a couple weeks before you want to do this process. That way, as you can see here, I've got all my milk jugs. I have 2 trays of these. These are these nice big boxes from Costco. So I have 2 big trays of these, and I can just, go through and try to sow as many seeds as I can. The other tip I have for you is you want to sow, one particular variety in one milk jug. So however many seeds packets you have or ones you've collected that you want to sow, make sure you collect enough milk jugs. So next up, I'm just going to go ahead and fill this with some soil. And I have my soil back here on some casters, this little rolling bin here. And I'm just going to fill this up with damp potting mix, about 4 to 5 inches. All right, so there's my potting soil in there. And now, as I'm sowing the different seeds, I want to look at the back of the seed packet so that it will tell me if I need to cover the seeds and how deep the seeds need to be covered. So let's see, this one is a 1/4 inch, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start off with my lettuce seed. And when I'm doing winter sowing, I usually am pretty generous with my, how much seeds I'm putting in there. The reason for that is I tend to overseed a little bit with my winter sowing jugs so that I have lots of little seedlings when the time comes. So I'm going to try to do this standing up. I've actually poured these out in the wrong hand, but we're going to see what we can do here. Yeah, this isn't going to work. I'm going to have to set this down. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get these sown. And I've got that little hinge so I can open up my milk jug. And again, I'm being pretty liberal with how many I'm putting in there, because if I'm going to do this process, I want to have lots of seedlings that I can separate out later. Now, another tip I have for you is one tip I have is that if you are doing a variety of seeds that when this germinates, it's kind of like a little hedge in here. So if you can do things like columbine is a good example, then I could just break off a whole piece of this and I don't have to individually try to get every little seedling apart. If it's a type of flower where you can just kind of break off a chunk of it and put that in the ground, that works really well. And that's what I did last year with my amaranth. My amaranth last year went crazy. And I didn't separate every single one out when I put it in my raised garden beds after it had germinated. I just sort of broke off a chunk and stuck that in the ground and it worked perfectly. So now I've got my lettuce seeds in here, and I did, first of all, I am using the wet soil, okay, and I'm going to just tamp them down a little bit, and I could kind of scatter a little extra soil up on top. Another thing that's nice about these jugs is that, you won't get any birds or anything like that trying to eat your seeds, right? And they are a little bit more protected. And now I'm just going to take my tape and I'm going to tape them up. So actually, before I tape them up, I am going to write a tag and put that tag inside of the milk jug. And then another thing I like to do is on the top of the milk jug, right up here where I can see it, I'm also going to write the name of it. That just helps me later. What I like to do is just peek in the top to see about my germination rates. And when I'm ready to use the whole container and I notice that most of them have germinated, then I can just take the whole thing and open it up. So I like to write on the outside of the jug what is sown in that jug. So I'm going to write that in. Now I'm going to get my tape and go ahead and tape this shut. So this is kind of tricky. You kind of have to hold it down, hold it together with one hand, and then get your duct tape put around. All right, now I got it all taped up. It's not the most pretty thing, but it is pink duct tape, so that was kind of a good find. I found that in my garage. Anyway, it's all taped up, so now I'm going to go ahead and just put this outside and let nature do its magic, right? Like I said, I did start with wet soil, so I'm not going to water these in right now. Plus, it's going to rain here in the next couple days anyway. And I did tamp down those seeds pretty well, so they are touching that wet soil. So hopefully within a couple weeks, I will have some lettuce seedlings. So when you do set these outside, make sure you are setting them somewhere where they will get moisture from the rain and they will get plenty of sun. So think about your yard or your property and put them in a place where they're going to get nice warm sun during the day and they will get some rain. So for instance, don't put them under the eaves of your house. I made that mistake one year and they didn't get enough water. So make sure that you are putting them in a good spot and then you should have some pretty good success here. All right, so here's the results of my task for today. So I have cosmos, columbine, lettuce, 2 things of sweet peas, actually 2 things of columbine. I have love and a mist. I have bells of Ireland, Canterbury bells, so those are kind of 2 different. Forget-me-nots, black swan poppies, salmon poppies, and lilac poppies. So those are all the ones I was able to get sown today. I have them in a nice sunny spot here where they're going to get lots of rain. And, you know, this also, another benefit is that this means that all of these can get sown without taking room up in my growing station indoors. So for those of you who do grow, like I grow a lot of cut flowers, I want to have that room available in my seed starting station in my house. And that means all of these can be out here and not taking up that precious room. Well, I hope this video was helpful for you guys and gave you some tips and tricks on winter sowing. If you've never tried this type of sowing seeds, I would highly encourage you to give it a shot this year. It's really easy and it's really fun. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And again, if you have more, if you want more information on seed sowing, if you want to watch the video I did last year regarding this topic, I will leave those in the description below for you. And be sure to stay tuned for my next video. I'll be taking you through the different seeds that I'm starting every month. I've already done my seed starting for January, so stick around. I'll be doing a lot more seed starting and talking about what equipment you'll need if you do want to start seeds indoors. So thanks for hanging out today, guys. If you need me, I'll be doing some gardening. I'll see you next time. Bye.